Good morning. I'm proud. And I know we're not supposed to be proud, right? We're not supposed to have this pride, but we can when we boast in the Lord, right? And I am so proud of you guys. I see the difference. I can see changes. I really can see you guys putting some of this stuff into practice, and then I feel bad because I'm not doing as good as you. But I really am so proud. And I say this because we're the newcomer, right? I mean, when we came to Lanark, we didn't know anybody, and you guys didn't know us, and we're the new people in town. And of course, we've been accused of not doing things quite right, and you've heard me speak about that before, and I don't care because I think we're worshiping the Lord the way He wants, with some excitement. If you walked out onto a stage and somebody was going to welcome you, and everybody just standing there like this, you're like, right? But if you walked out there and the people jumped, and they shouted, and they raised their hands, you would be excited. You'd know that they loved you. And that's where I think we need this excitement in church. We need to do things with the zeal that the Lord gives us. And when we have a heart for this, it really gets a lot easier. But I can see the difference that it's making in people's lives. It's nothing that I'm doing. It's everything that He's doing. But I'm so proud of you guys. Just so you know, I just can't hardly take it. Thank you for being part of this little church. I want to give you a Bible teaching, and then I'm going to give you my opinion. If you're new to Simply Free Church, you might think this is odd, but there are a certain amount of truths, there's a certain amount of mysteries, and then there's a certain amount of opinion. And I'm going to give you some opinion today, but we're going to start out by talking about the parable of the laborers in the vineyard, or workers in the field, or whatever your paraphrase or version says. And I want to give you a little recap here. The rich young man has come to Jesus and said, "What do I need to do to have salvation?" And He tells him to go sell everything and follow me. And a lot of people get this out of context, and it's kind of an abuse of the context. It doesn't mean for everybody to sell everything they have and all Christians are supposed to live in poverty. That is not what that means at all. You have to understand the culture and what was happening. This rich man idolized the money. So this verse was actually for the rich man to give up what you idolize and start glorifying me. Follow me. It doesn't mean that you have to give up everything that you have. And sometimes there gets to be an abuse of the text by pastors thinking that you're supposed to give them everything. The church, give everything you have to the church. It's not what that means at all. So when he says this to the young rich man, he gets very depressed because this is what he idolizes. He worships his money. And he kind of walks away and he's hanging his head. And Peter turns to Jesus and says, "What are the rewards going to be for us?" Okay, now we're going to pick it up right here because he's going to tell Peter the parable of the laborers in the field. Vineyard, whatever yours says. This is quite some reading, so I broke it down, and if you wear glasses, you maybe can't see this, or I think I probably need glasses. Scott, will you put up the first slide there for Matthew 21 through 16? We're going to kind of break this down a little bit. So, you got to understand, Peter has asked this question. What is my reward going to be? What is our reward? He's got the apostles separated now. For the kingdom of heaven is like the landowner who went out early in the morning to hire workers for his vineyard. He agreed to pay them a denarius for the day and sent them into the vineyard. Now, I want you to make sure to follow some of this, right? You understand God is the landowner, right? The vineyard's going to be the kingdom of heaven. About 9 a.m, he went out and he saw others standing in the marketplace doing nothing. This just reminds me of my father. You know, you ever have one of these dads or mothers or parents or whatever say, "You're not doing anything." He told them, "You also go and work in the vineyard, and I will pay you whatever is right." So they went. He went out again about noon and about 3 in the afternoon and did the same thing. About 5 in the afternoon, he went out and found still others standing around. He asked them, "Why have you been standing here all day doing nothing?" Just got to stop for a minute. This is a good amount of Christians, right? They actually can get called in, but they're really not doing anything. Let's continue. Because no one has hired us, they said. You see, they didn't go out and seek something. They were just standing around. He said to them, "You also go and work in my vineyard." When evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to the foreman, "Call the workers and pay them their wages, beginning with the last one hired and going to the first." The workers who were hired at 5 in the afternoon came and each received a denarius. So when those who came that were hired first, they expected to receive more, but each one of them also received a denarius. When they received it, they began to grumble against the landowner. "These who were hired last worked only an hour," they said, "and you have made them equal to us, who have borne the burden of the work and the heat of the day." But he answered one of them, "I am not being unfair to you, friend. Didn't you agree to work for a denarius? Take your pay and go. I want to give the one who was hired last the same as I gave you. Don't I have the right to do whatever I want with my own money? Or are you envious because I am generous? So the last will be first, and the first will be last." I read this whole thing for you, and a lot of you that have been raised in a church have probably heard this, and I got to just be honest with you. I have heard this taught with so many different things. I actually made a little list of some of the things that have been taught on from this parable. And it kind of goes like this. Serve the Lord and don't have any idle time. Well, that was in there somewhere. Do the work you agreed to without complaining until it's done. Well, you can get that out of it too. The Lord gave you opportunity. He had to draw them in, and they had to take it. I've heard it taught on that too. The workers were obedient. Yeah, they sure were. The Lord continues to look to expand his kingdom. Did it all day long. The Lord wasn't judgmental on them. Yeah, I get that one too. God is not always fair. I've heard it taught on that. God has the privilege to reward as he sees fit. Okay, I get that too. All these things are in there. No doubt about it. These are all truths. God is generous. Salvation is the same regardless of when you come to him. And that's probably the biggest one that gets taught on, is that whether you come today or whether you've been a long-time person, you're going to have the same salvation. Be happy with what you have. I totally get that. Don't covet thy neighbor. Well, see, they're all looking at the end there. He got more than I got. I want more than, yeah, you get that, I hope. Mind your own business. Now, that sounds like something I would teach. That's me right there. I'm not going to today, but there's a good one. Mind your own business. Be grateful with your reward. All those things are in there, right? All of them. But I think there's actually a better use for the text. And you've got to remember what he's replying to, what the question was, what was going on, to understand why he's telling him this. And he actually gets down to the last line and says, so the last will be first and the first will be last. And this is something that's huge. Nobody really, okay, so what, I got to be poor. You see, there's things in here that Jesus doesn't say. And you got to remember these things. He doesn't want everybody to live in poverty. This is not what this means. And he doesn't say that. There are things in here. He's not teaching you to automatically reverse the role in heaven that it is on earth. And I've seen it taught on this before too. Everybody that's poor is going to be great in heaven, and everybody that's rich on earth is going to be poor in heaven. It doesn't say anything like that at all. You've got to remember what's going on here. So let's set this back up again. God is the landowner. The vineyard is the kingdom of heaven. The denarius was the reward. And then there's the foreman. The foreman is something that never gets taught on this. He sends out the foreman to bring them in and give them their reward. That's not the best part of this whole thing. The rewards are going to be different, right? We know this. So if this denarius in this parable is actually salvation, I can understand that. Salvation is salvation and salvation, but we also are going to be rewarded on the things that we have done. Matthew 16:27 says, "For the Son of Man will come in his glory, and his Father with his angels, and then he will reward each according to their works." Okay, here's another thing I got to stop you on. Works is not something that you can earn your way into heaven, right? I have taught on this forever and ever and ever, and everybody's got to know, you got to take this word works and really find out what it means. And it actually means to practice, the act of. It's a function of. It's a mode of practice. So it's not necessarily what you do, it's who you are. To practice something means that's who you are. When Peter asks him, "What is my reward?" he's basing this on what he had just heard when he told the rich man to go sell everything and follow me. What's the reward going to be? If this guy has to sell everything and follow you, what are we going to get? That's actually what he's answering when he tells them this parable. Now, the last is going to be first, and the first is going to be last. Let me give you an example of something here that I think Paul is actually kind of the last labeled apostle. He wasn't one of the originals, but he's the last one to be called. And look what happens to him. He's the last. And yet he writes, 2/3 of the New Testament? We quote him all the time. Everybody knows who he is. They name in churches after him. And he actually was the one that was arguing. He was the newcomer into the group. And he actually was arguing with James that we need to take this good news to the Gentiles. And James is like, no, this is just for the Jewish people, the Israelites. And they have this argument. And Paul finally wins. Yeah, you're right. Okay, let's take it to everybody. The last shall be first. There's a good example right there. It's got nothing to do with how rich you are or anything like that. The last shall be first, and the first shall be last. Perfect example of what he's talking about. But I don't think that's the main thing. The attitude in which these workers came to get their reward is huge. And one of the last verses says, "Are you envious?" He already knew they were. They were greedy. They wanted more. They thought that they did more, they should be rewarded more. And these other people that had only been working here for an hour, you poured out a reward on them just like you did the rest of us, but we did all this work. This is the church, you guys. This is the church. This is generations of people sitting in their pew and listening to somebody speak and not really doing anything, not really reaching the lost, not really going after the lost sheep. And I'm not trying to put anything down. We need all these different denominations because some people worship in a different way. We need them all. But if you take this parable and look at it, as the people, now I'm sure you've all been to a church like this before, right? Grandma and Grandpa bought the organ, and if you do something wrong, I'm taking my organ and leaving. Right? My grandfather started this place. He put those boards up right over there, and you are not going to do any different than what he's done all along. You see, the newcomer came in and wanted to do different. And the old-timers can't stand it. Now, I don't mean anything bad by that. This is the church. This is the Pharisees and Jesus and his apostles. The Pharisees were the ones that thought, we're doing it all right. We've been doing this so long. Don't you come in here and telling us we're doing it wrong. And Jesus was the newcomer. He was the guy that had only been there. His ministry only lasted 3.5 years. And he was telling them how they were doing things wrong, and they had been doing this for years, for generations. This is how we do it. And you're telling us we're not doing it right. They thought they were worthy of a better reward than even Jesus. They thought they were worthy of a better reward than the apostles he picked because they didn't fit the mold. They were the newcomers. They were the new ones in the bunch. So when Peter says, what's my reward? Jesus starts to explain to them about the last being first and the first being last. And in this parable, you've got to understand, I believe, that it's the Pharisees. Now, we can spread this out however you want. You can use this, right? The Pharisees, the Sadducees, they all were dead set on the law. And this is how it had to be. And this is how we've always done it. And they didn't really, now really, go take your Bibles and try to find a place in there where the Pharisees or the Sadducees were actually out trying to reach the lost. I have a real hard time finding anything like that at all. And Jesus shows up and tells them we need to reach the lost. And he's eating with sinners, you see. He's with Matthew, and maybe they call him Levi at the time. And he's eating and enjoying stuff. And they're just appalled. He is the new guy telling the ones that have worked for generations that his apostles are going to get the same reward as those guys. In fact, not only are they going to get the same reward, they're going to be first. Now think about this. You're going to tell Peter, who just wanted to know what his reward was going to be, that the guys that have been doing this for so long and think they're right and are envious of what's going on here are going to be last, and you and the apostles are going to be first. You're all going to get the same reward, but you're going to do it first. That is huge. Therefore, at the end where he says the first shall be last and the last shall be first, he's trying to explain to Peter, just keep doing what you're doing, buddy. We're doing it. We're doing it. We're shaking up culture. We're changing hearts. Don't worry about those guys. They're the ones that think they're doing it all right, and they've already got their reward. It says that they actually will reap their reward on earth. The last shall be first. You guys are the first, but not anymore. You might have been raised in a church just like that, and now we're doing things different. We're excited for Jesus. We're trying to reach the lost. I want you to be part of something that's new, that's different. I want you to be the last ones hired. Now, if we're coming to the day of the Lord, I mean, everybody thinks things are getting close, right? Our world's a mess. You guys are the ones that have only worked for an hour. Our ancestors, all the other generations, maybe they're the ones that have been doing this so long that they think they are doing it right and they need a little bit better reward. You guys are the new ones. And I want you to be proud. You're making a difference in this community. You're making a difference in your family. Don't you ever let somebody come up to you and make you feel bad about being a new Christian. Or maybe doing it a little bit different. Because that's what this parable is about. I want you to think about the guys that got paid first. The ones that had only been there for an hour. And they get called in first by the foreman. And they get handed their reward. And they know darn well that those guys are going to be mad. They had to. They would have known this. And they probably were standing this. Now, the landowner is going to explain to the guy who's complaining why he's getting the same amount as the newcomer that's only been there for an hour. He's explaining to this, and the newcomer's still standing there just with his head down. We call this humility. This is humbling yourself. Yeah, I'm not as good as people are. Neither are you. And we can stand there and say, yeah, I probably don't deserve salvation. That's being humble. Yeah, I'm probably not doing it right. You're right. We should probably be doing all that other stuff. That's humility. That's who's going to be first. No arguing. Last week we talked about arguing and what you can do and what you can't do. Humility is huge. The ones that had only worked for an hour were standing there while the landowner is explaining to these guys that have been there all day. And they're saying, we worked in the heat of the day. We've been here all day. Now, we all know somebody like this, don't we? And the newcomer is standing there thinking, he's probably a little ashamed of himself. Because the guy that had been there all day probably hammered him most of his life. Didn't work enough, didn't do enough for the kingdom, didn't help expand it enough. Me and my family, we've been doing this for a long time. And this heat that they talk about would be trials and tribulations that we went through. And you've only been here for a short time and you think you're doing it right? You're doing it right. You'll be first if you act like the newcomer. Humble yourself. Here's the biggest problem that we run into, other than keeping your mouth shut. James 4:17. This is called the sin of omission. And we're guilty of this. If anyone then knows the good they ought to do and doesn't do it, it is sin for them. You guys are the newcomers. You really are. You're the generation that has started to change things, shake up culture a little bit. I'm not all good with what's going on in this world, but I can see that the church is changing hearts, changing families, changing the way you do things, changing relationships. And I'm so proud of this little assembly. You are the newcomers. Be humble about it. Yeah, those guys are probably better than us. Yep, they're probably doing it right. I don't know whether we're doing it right or not, but we know that our heart is right. Isn't that what he wants? Isn't that what you would want? Somebody that truly loved you? Let's go back to talking about walking up on stage. Somebody walks up on stage here, they're gonna celebrate you. And they're all just kind of standing there. Dude. And you walk up the next time and they are, boy, I better be careful what I say, having fun, hooting and hollering, glad to see you. Their hearts are so full of love, they want to be with you. They're throwing things at you on the stage. You guys aren't old enough to know about that, are you? Frank and Amy in here, you old hippies, aren't you? Yeah, I know. You threw stuff at bands, I know you did. That's a heart change, you guys. That's not necessarily doing everything right. That's not necessarily being, no, maybe I should say fit the mold. You see, I don't fit the mold. I'm not this guy that fits the mold to do this. I'm the newcomer, and so are you. If you've been raised in a church and now you're figuring out, hey, we need to do this a little bit different, this is a hard issue, this is how we should be, will the band get ready, please? And would somebody go get my wife? Oh, that's always scary, isn't it? You guys are the newcomer. I got to get to going on this, though, because they're going to come out. Jesus is the foreman, right? You got to understand this. He's the one that hands out the reward. He built his church on the people that had a heart change. They were teachable. They weren't the ones that had been there working all day long. He took the newcomers and built his church on them and told them they were doing it wrong. And these are the guys that are going to be first. That's you. You are the newcomers to this Christianity thing. And don't be ashamed of it. In fact, when somebody tells you, oh, you're not doing it right, that's not how you're supposed to be doing it, just say, well, what do I usually say? Right. Now, we're not going to say that this time. We're going to say, yeah, you're probably right. You're probably right. I'm not sure I'm doing it right. But God will forgive me. Just make sure that you understand who the foreman is and what he wants from you, whether you're brand new, whether you've been doing this forever and ever, or not. So we're going to take just a second here and reward one of the newcomers. Everybody think it's you? Huh? Can't be me, right? It's this lady. She served our kids' ministry for 5 years. And it's time for her to take a little time to herself. She's not going to leave the church, nothing like that. But when you bring kids to know the Lord, that's huge. And her reward is going to be just as good as all of yours. But today, she's going to be first. Pat, would you come up here? Come on. You deserve some time to yourself. You don't have to do it all week long anymore. But thank you for what you've done. I don't know whether we can replace you or not. But today, you get to be first. Kelly.
Hi. Come up here, kiddos. Come up here, get around Pat. You guys all know Pat, don't you? They all made Pat cards today. So they all have cards for you. She's served in our ministry for 5 years and put her heart and soul in it. Unbelievable. Just everything she's done. And we are so grateful and thankful for her. And don't we love Pat, you guys? We do, don't we? Yes, we do. Our goal in Simply Kids is to make sure every child has Jesus in their heart, and that they know Jesus when they leave this place and as they grow. And Pat has helped me do that. But without you and bringing your children here every single week, I know it's hard to do. I know it's not easy. And so we thank you for bringing your children to us so we can teach them about Jesus. But we are just so grateful to you, Pat. Thank you. I have a Bible verse I have to read. God is not unjust. He will not forget. God is not unjust. He will not forget your work and the love you have shown him as you have helped his people and continue to help them. Hebrews 5:10. Thank you for everything. We love you so much. And they have cards. They want to give them to you personally. You can give Pat your cards, okay? I know everybody likes to see the kids up there, but we're in the middle of a really fun game, and I have to take them back there because we have to finish, and I promised them we'd finish when we get back, so I'm taking them back there with me.
She gets to be first today. She literally was a newcomer. Well, we didn't know everything, did we, Pat? Well, we learned, and we changed lives. You changed lives. Thank you for what you do. Your denarius will probably be a little bigger than mine. I think a denarius is actually based on weight, so that's a stupid line, but I'm all good with you getting more reward than me. As Abby sings out this song, I just want you to think about your heart, where you're at. Yes, you're a newcomer. Maybe you haven't been doing this very long. Maybe you have been doing it for a long time, but your heart has changed. All you got to do is know the foreman. He's the one that's going to bring in the harvest. He's the one that's going to give out the rewards. He's the one that's worthy of what we do in the vineyard, whether you've been doing it for an hour or whether you've been there all day in the heat. If you just humble yourself, get your heart in the right place, you too will be first. I want you to think about Jesus for a minute. He comes to earth, and all these people thought they were doing it right. He was the new guy. 3.5 years is all he walked this earth in his ministry. I mean, he was born, but his ministry started after he was baptized. 3.5 years he worked on people. He was the newcomer, and they didn't like him. They didn't think he was doing it right, and look where he's at today. He sits at the right hand of the Father. He is first. You can do the same thing. It's talking about being humble. It's talking about it doesn't matter how long. All these things. It talks about, it means so many things. But what it really means is, it doesn't matter how long you've been doing this ministry or what you're involved in. If your heart's right, He will take the last and make them first. Will you pray with me? Father God, I'm so sorry for some of the things I've done. I don't deserve to be first. I deserve to be last. That's when I know that you'll make me first. Jesus, I love you so much. And from this day forward, I want to commit my heart to you and be humble with what you've given me, and what I do with it, I'll leave up to you. Lord, we love you. We thank you. Let us leave this place with that humility that you want. In Jesus' name, amen.